What if I told you there's a single mathematical model that's quietly shaping everything from your bank account to the very latest AI? It's a model that kind of runs the modern world, and it's built on one single, profoundly strange idea.
So let me just ask you, how do you predict the future? Whether it's the stock market or tomorrow's weather or the next move in a chess game, our first instinct is to look back, right? To look at the entire history of everything that came before. But what if the best way to see what's coming
is to forget the past completely? I know, it sounds like a total paradox, but this simple, counterintuitive idea is the secret sauce behind one of the most influential concepts in all of science and technology.
Okay, let's really unpack this. We're talking about a concept called the Markov property, and it's the engine behind what we call Markov models. And it's a very peculiar kind of engine, because it's a machine that operates with no memory. Here's the core idea, in a nutshell. The Markov property says that for some systems, the only thing that matters for predicting the future is where you are right now. That's it. The entire journey you took here, all the twists and turns, all the history, is completely irrelevant. It's a pretty radical way to simplify reality.
To make this feel a little less abstract, think about a chess game. To decide your next move, you don't need to know the whole history of the game, right? You just need to look at the board as it is right now. Or what about the weather? A forecast for tomorrow is based entirely on today's atmospheric conditions, the pressure, the temperature, the wind, not on what the weather was like last Tuesday. In a way, the past is already baked into the present.
So, how do we actually turn this memoryless property into a powerful predictive tool? Well, we build a model. And it's based on two really simple things: states and the transitions between them. This is the basic blueprint, and it's often called a Markov decision process, or MDP for short. So first, you have a set of possible states, like being healthy or sick, or an economy being in an expansion or a stress period. Then you have actions you can take in those states. And this is the key part: transition probabilities, which is just the chance of moving from your current state to a future one. And finally, you have a reward function that tells you the value of making that particular move. And believe me, this isn't just a theory you find in a textbook. Research from Vanderbilt University points out that these state transition models are the most common framework used in health economics. They're being used to make real-world decisions about our health, about new technologies, and about new policies. So let's see how this actually plays out in a couple of incredibly high-stakes fields: finance and healthcare. These are places where a single decision can be worth billions of dollars or literally save thousands of lives.
First up, wealth. In today's turbulent economy, how can a bank possibly predict who is going to default on a loan? They can't see the future, obviously, but they can identify hidden patterns in the present.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Researchers used a Markov model to look at 3.8 million loan accounts. The model didn't just look at individual people. No, it identified two hidden, unobserved economic states, or regimes, that the entire system was in: a stable expansion state and a much more volatile stress state. And it turns out the probability of you defaulting depends heavily on which of these invisible states the economy is in at that moment. And this is the payoff. This brilliantly shows the power of this approach. By making their credit risk models regime-aware, by having them understand the current hidden state, the researchers reduced their forecasting error by a massive 22.7%. That is a huge leap in accuracy. Okay, now let's see how this exact same logic applies to our health. When a new, really expensive drug comes out, how do policymakers decide if it's a good value for the entire healthcare system? Well, they use these models to simulate the potential paths of thousands of patients over time. But here's the thing: there's a trade-off. Markov models are incredibly fast and computationally efficient, but that memoryless assumption can be a real problem. What if a patient's history does matter? A more complex model, like something called a discrete event simulation, might be more accurate, but it requires way more data and a ton more computing power. So, for a lot of big-picture evaluations, the speed and the simplicity of the Markov model just wins out.
This brings us right to the cutting edge. That same framework of states, actions, and rewards isn't just for modeling economies or diseases anymore. It's the fundamental language, the very bedrock we use to teach machines how to think.
You see, in high-stakes fields, we can't just have an AI that works. We need to understand why it works. As researchers from Shanghai Jiao Tong University and the University of South Florida really emphasize, having AI policies that are understandable or interpretable is absolutely essential.
And the Markov decision process is the key. It provides the perfect little sandbox for an AI agent to learn through pure trial and error. The agent tries different actions in different states, it observes the rewards, and slowly but surely it learns an optimal strategy or policy for how to behave to get the most reward over time.
Let's see this in action with a really simple example from that same research. An AI is trained to control a tiger that's hunting an antelope. In the end, the AI develops a policy that's basically just a simple decision tree. So what does it learn?
So the first thing the AI learns to check is the antelope's position. The rule is simple. If the antelope is trapped over near the left wall.
Okay, so condition 1 is met. Next, the AI checks its own position, and the second condition is, and if the tiger is also reasonably close to that same wall, then the optimal action is not to charge, it's to wait. The AI actually learned that the best strategy is to hold its position, cut off the escape route, and let the prey's own random movement bring it closer. It learned patience, it learned strategy, not just mindless pursuit.
And that brings us full circle. The power of this world-changing model isn't in remembering everything, but in knowing what's essential to remember. The real genius is in forgetting the noise and just focusing on the now.
So just to recap, we've seen how this memoryless Markov property makes seemingly impossible problems solvable. We've seen it at work in finance and healthcare, helping to weigh risks and inform absolutely critical decisions. And we've seen how it provides the very foundation for teaching an AI how to learn, strategize, and act in our world.
But this leaves us with one final and pretty crucial question. The model's greatest strength is also its greatest blindness. If an AI trained on this framework is fundamentally memoryless, what crucial lessons from history, from context, from that long and winding path of cause and effect might it be doomed never to learn?